I just don't know why it had to end that way.
Friends, family, loved ones, we are gathered here today to remember the life of a beautiful young man who has finally departed us. A young man who came to us with such promise, such hope, such optimism, is a symbol of the potential that our small and scrappy team could achieve. I believe, oh no, someone has exited through the fire exit. It's okay. Everything is fine. Such promise. A symbol of the potential of what such a small, scrappy team could be, that finally his arrival gave us validation. But as we know, and I can tell from the sense, not of mourning among those gathered, but of relief, the last few years were painful, horrible. If you've come here today, you understood that those of us who lived with him over the past few years understood the agony that he had to go through, dragging his useless body about, a torturous existence. Personally, I asked God daily to take him, and in his suffering, what purpose did it serve? What purpose does it serve for you, Almighty Creator, to watch the suffering of your creation? So we remember thee, Chancun. Ashes to ashes, asses to asses, dust to dust. As you've gone on, and may your broken body be made whole. Amen. All right, and welcome to Fast Break Breakfast NBA Podcast. My name is Keith, here, alone, from the 31st floor of the Cosmopolitan. A place I did not want to be last night as the ground beneath Vegas began to shake. Luckily, I was not here. I was inside the Thomas and Mack Center. More on that in a little bit. So, a lot of stuff has happened in the last few days. The Grizzlies have been at the forefront of a lot of it. Not so much now since the Kawhi Leonard news finally broke. So, I'm going to review some of that, review what went on at Summer League, the Zion Williamson debut, and just kind of give you some stream of thought on what's going on in the NBA right now. First of all, on Wednesday, when I was getting ready for my travels to Las Vegas, I was at Opry Mills, which is John Burr's church in Nashville, Tennessee, at the Giant Shopping Pavilion, when the news that our boy Chandler Parsons had finally left us. No more Chancun. He's moved on to greener pastures. People were saying it was a big deal because they finally got rid of that contract. It really wasn't. They took one horrible contract and got back two also horrible contracts. I mean, theoretically, Solomon Hill can give you a little something. Sky Miles Plumlee can give you a little something. I feel like this offseason the Grizzlies have really become like a full-fledged NBA team because, they picked up a Zeller last year, so that they've had a Zeller and a Plumlee now. They picked up a Finals MVP, Iguodala. Then later, as I'll get to, they trade for another future Hall of Famer, Dwight Howard. So the Grizzlies really, I think, raising their esteem among NBA franchises with this big offseason. But anyway, so the Parsons news was pretty exciting, just to finally have the last remnant of the horrific summer of 2016 erased from the Grizzlies' books. He was the longest tenured Grizzly. Right now, the longest tenured Grizzlies are Dylan Brooks and Ivan Rabb. Ivan Rabb is playing in Summer League. He'll be playing today, but his contract is non-guaranteed, and we're not sure if he's going to be back on the team. The most games played of any Grizzly right now is Dylan Brooks with 100. I think Ivan Rabb's next with 85, and then it's like Jaren Jackson Jr. 58, Kyle Anderson 38. It's not a lot of guys with any experience on playing for the Grizzlies still on the Grizzlies, as they've completely shaken up their roster this offseason. Then later in the day was the big trade for me, as the Grizzlies kind of worked over the Suns, as the Suns tried to clear up some space to maintain Kelly Oubre's restricted free agent hold. And the Grizzlies got rid of one of my, admittedly, you listeners know, I did not like Javon Carter. So they got rid of one of my least favorite Grizzlies in Chandler Parsons. And then another different dislike. Javon Carter seemed like a nice guy. He just wasn't good. I didn't think he had what it takes. I know a lot of hardcore Grizzlies fans and the West Virginia fans in my Twitter mentions are always coming to argue for him, saying he's going to be the next Pat Beverly. Well, Pat Beverly took a long time, and maybe this is the time that now Javon Carter can go off to the Ukraine and get good at basketball and come back, but I don't think he's much of an NBA player. So to get rid of Javon Carter and that Kyle Korver contract, to bring in DeAnthony Melton and Josh Jackson and potentially 2 second-round picks, as the Woj Shade said, Suns picks tend to be in the top of the second round. So that second one is protected, where the Grizzlies only get it if the Suns have one of the 5 worst records. So, that seems like a pretty good chance of that happening. But so Chandler Parsons and Javon Carter being traded away in one day, and to get assets for it would normally be like my steak and eggs best thing right there. That is just a great day for the Grizzlies. The Josh Jackson thing is weird. Yes, he has a high draft pedigree. If Chris Wallace had made this trade, we would be bemoaning that they got just another burned out Kansas All-American type young player. But when I'm looking at the trade, I don't even consider Josh Jackson as being a part of it. He's found money. For me, just getting DeAnthony Melton, a guy who can dribble, who hope can become like a 3-and-D guard type of player, just getting him in the second round picks and getting rid of the extra players that you might have had to cut in the first place. That's just like, it's a great return for that. Then Josh Jackson is just on top of that. I do have the concerns about his personal off the court issues. The sneaking into the VIP festival in Miami is like, it's not that big of a deal. I guess some of the details around it aren't the best. Then there's the story of him accidentally getting his 4-month-old high while he was supposed to be babysitting it. Not awesome. He also didn't show up to events with the Suns. Like, they'd have meet and greets and he just wouldn't show up. So it seems like not the best head on his shoulders. And for the Grizzlies, who everything right now is based around 19-year-old Jaren Jackson Jr., 19-year-old Ja Morant, I do not want this however old, 23, 24-year-old kind of screw up around those guys. Protect my babies. Protect Ja and JJJ. I don't know if we need to hire Tony Allen to be a full-time, keep Josh Jackson away from the kids. Maybe Zebo would be perfect that role, because a lot of people have pointed out that Zach Randolph had some shady issues in his past before he came to the Grizzlies and became one of arguably the greatest Grizzly ever. The obvious difference is Zebo was really good in the NBA. Zebo had been an all-star, but before he became a Grizzly and had those issues. So taking the flyer on Josh Jackson, again, if they cut him today, I would still be happy with that trade. And then then I traveled to Vegas on Friday, and while I'm there on the first day, the CJ Miles trade for Dwight Howard a hilarious trade as the Grizzlies shave off a little more salary cap room. I don't love that they've gotten rid of C.J. Miles and Kyle Korver. I kind of wanted to keep one just for that veteran leadership, for that locker room chemistry, for the added shooting and spacing. I feel like it's going to be a really tough time again with the Grizzlies having shooting, and with Ja Morant is certainly going to struggle as a rookie, and he could use some spacing. So I do think they need some veteran wings who can shoot, and they got rid of him. They traded C.J. Miles. They traded Kyle Korver. They finally cut Avery Bradley to get his salary off the books. I wish they would be able to find some shooting, so that might be a concern for the actual basketball product. But they ended up getting Dwight Howard. They're not going to ever let him suit up for the Grizzlies. It saves him $3 million, gets him farther away from the luxury tax line. So this means they now have plenty of room to match a offer sheet that might come for DeLon Wright. I don't know how rich of an offer sheet they might want to make. The Mavs have been a rumored suitor for him, and with Danny Green spurning them to go to the Lakers in the fallout of the Kawhi move, maybe the Mavericks would offer him a pretty significant contract. And so now the Grizzlies have the option of matching that if they want to. And so the Grizzlies offseason of being incredibly active, it continues. It's very bizarre to have, as a Grizzlies fan, to have an offseason be more enjoyable than the regular season. That's never really happened in Grizzlies history. It's always been, all right, these other teams get to win July and get excited about their free agents and their draft picks. But when the regular season comes, we'll still gonna win 50 games, make the playoffs. So our joy comes in the regular season. It's now swapped, where this is our, I don't know. This is the good part of the season for us. The regular season will be difficult, I believe. And everyone's like really praising the new front office, and I think it's rightful to praise what Zach Kleiman is doing with the Grizzlies. But keep in mind, when you're not attempting to win basketball games, it's way easier to win the offseason. Yes, teams like the Knicks and the Suns still screw it up. But if you don't have to worry about winning basketball games in the upcoming season, you can make these forward-thinking moves, bring in assets, utilize your open cap space, get this collection of veteran players with all different size salaries that you can mix and match to take on unwanted contracts, to be the willing trade partner for other people, and build up your stockpile of future picks. And you're getting a lot of young players. And even if you want to be cynical about all the guys they've gotten, and it is a huge list, I keep tweeting out the list of the return of the Mike Conley trade when you include the traded player exception that was created and how they got Iguodala from that. Like, even if none of these guys ends up being good, Brandon Clark, Grayson Allen, DeAnthony Melton, any of the future picks, it's okay. What you do is, in the absence of Mike Conley being on the team, knowing he wasn't going to be on the team or didn't want to stay, you just get a lot of bites of the apple, and all these little things they've done have given them a lot of bites of the apple. If just a couple of these players and picks turn out, it's a good trade. And so it's very exciting, and kudos to the front office. Although, again, when the games start, this team might be bad. And I was talking to some writers here in Vegas being like, man, the Grizzlies are killing it. The Grizzlies are going to be really good. I'm like, they could be if their players are good. We don't know if the players are good yet, which is the big issue. We know Jaren Jackson Jr. is good, but everything else beyond that is a very big mystery. So Las Vegas Summer League, the headlining marquee event of Friday night was Zion Williamson's debut for the Summer League Pelicans, playing against R.J. Barrett's Knicks. It was one of the more exciting atmospheres in the Thomas and Mack Center. Just when the teams ran out on the court, everyone was standing. There was such a buzz, so much. The atmosphere was electric. Just see Zion Williamson come out. And this is a guy I've barely seen on TV. You guys know I don't watch college. And so him coming out, and just like everyone went nuts when he just came out of the tunnel, which is a very bizarre experience for Vegas Summer League. My first impressions of seeing him in person, he's so big and fat. He's like wide and gigantic and does not look like he's in shape. My second thought was like, this guy is going to have a horrible injury sometime in his career because he's so big and he jumps so high. But then so he's so big and he kind of waddles, and it's strange. But then when he jumps and he's doing these windmill 360s in the warm-ups, and it's unlike anything I've ever seen with my eyes. It was really fantastic. So, the game starts, everyone's going nuts. Everyone stood up the entire warm-ups. Again, just an electric atmosphere. The Thomas & Mack Center was full for a Summer League game, reminiscent of the Lonzo Ball Lakers debut, and then the Ben Simmons game. I think D'Angelo Russell was in one of those games. So those... that was the last time I'd seen the gym at UNLV where the games were going on that full. I think it might have been the fullest because it was all the way up and the upper decks was totally full. So Zion had an okay game. I mean, he airballed some shots. He looked really awkward on offense. Mitchell Robinson blocked his shots a lot. But in his first NBA game, he had 4 dunks in the first quarter. He was a beast when he posted up. He was just throwing guys out of the way. Kevin Knox, just as everyone saw, had his lunch money taken from him. And then Zion made him watch him eat his lunch with the money he had taken from him. Just a humiliating display. So Zion Williamson was awesome. He doesn't play the second half. Then the second half, so there was an earthquake, I guess halfway between Los Angeles and Las Vegas. So I'm sitting in the bleachers in the end zone, and I start feeling the bleachers move. My first thought was, this feels like the bleachers are retracting, like you're in one of those high school gyms where there's a switch and then the bleachers pull in. So I was like, wait, did someone accidentally retract the bleachers? So I started to get a little concerned, do I need to get off the bleachers? Then it started being like a wave where the bleachers were moving up and down. And again, my next thought was, are people jumping up and down behind us? Again, going back to a high school game, when everyone's jumping and the bleachers are bouncing. So I'm like, are people jumping because everyone had been so excited for the game? And then it occurs to me, oh, this is probably an earthquake. I've never felt an earthquake. Being in Tennessee, not really an issue. So, I definitely felt like I was on the ocean for a little bit where it was just wobbling. A lot of people said they felt like it makes your legs feel queasy, or it was almost akin to being drunk. You just feel I don't think or some people said maybe they thought they felt faint because they hadn't eaten. So the legs were wobbly. And then at this point, it's they're still playing basketball. This is definitely an earthquake. And you can hear the murmurs and the concern from the crowd. It was weird to me that the players didn't really stop playing. I don't know if they didn't feel it as much being on the court or they're running around, but finally some coaches are something's going on, and they stop the game. The big Jumbotron is swaying back and forth, and all these stacks of speakers hanging by chains are swinging back and forth. I kind of thought maybe making a break for it. Some people made a break for it, took off getting out of there. It occurred to me that I know panic stampedes are bad too, but I felt like enough people were moving slowly. I could have gotten out of there fine. The PA guy starts saying ladies and gentlemen, the safest place to be is in your seat. Please remain calm. I felt like he was he was gassing us up. He just wants us to not run and hurt each other. So I was very nervous. I started looking up above me. Didn't seem like there was anything that could drop unless the entire structure, gave way. But then it was over, so quick. I don't know how long it actually lasted, but it was a bizarre moment. It's also really funny. I was going before the earthquake. I was going down to try to get a photo of Jaren Jackson Jr. and John Morant, who were sitting beside each other courtside, and I'd gotten pretty close to them and was waiting for a timeout and for it to get a little quiet so I could say "Hey, Jaren, can I get a pic or whatever?" But that's when the earthquake happened, and those guys took off. They bolted. I assume they're fine, but they did not stick around to see what would occur. But so anyway, the game was canceled. The games in the other gym kept playing. It was weird. They didn't know if they were going to reschedule the games in that gym later that night. But so we had the Zion Williamson experience, which was unique. Then I experienced an earthquake. I've never done it. I didn't like it. I give it 2 out of 5 stars. Not enjoyable. It made me very worried for a little bit. But I guess in retrospect, I'm glad I experienced it. Life experience, never had that happen before. And then finally, so later after the game, I'm having dinner with a buddy, and that's when the Kawhi news breaks. And it occurred to me it's the middle of the night in Toronto, so I felt kind of bad for all those people that are going to wake up. Much like I remember when I woke up when Kawhi Leonard got traded to the Raptors. That was also in the middle of the night. So the Kawhi trade, or the Kawhi free agency announcement, excuse me. So he announced he's going to the Clippers, and the reaction was whoa, that's crazy. And then came the Woj bomb that Paul George was being included. And that was the thing where it once again highlights how ESPN and all the news content creators, they just recycle the same rumors, or they come up with the same rumors about Lakers, Raptors, Lakers, Raptors. The Clippers and a Paul George trade had not been mentioned at all. As far as my knowledge, that had not been a rumor thrown out there. So, I guess good job, ESPN. You got massive ratings for a week just talking about, is Kawhi going to the Lakers? Maybe. I think so. Probably. This is why. And never once coming up with getting the Clippers getting Paul George as well angle. So the Paul George trade is crazy to me. This goes back to me thinking that GMs do things when they're really old. I guess you had to do it, and the only way to look at it is you traded all those picks for Kawhi and Paul George, which is accurate. But like at Jerry West, he's like 82. Well, he doesn't care if these 7 first-round picks, turn out bad for the franchise. So the Clippers, I think, are a huge win for them. I think the winners aren't just the Clippers, though. I think the league as a whole, they love the parity. I don't think there's a dominant team. I know people in this recency bias of it just happening are like, all right, Kawhi and Paul George, definitely the favorites. I think it's completely wide open. I think the regular season is going to be wide open. Another winner, I think, is the Thunder. Come out awesome in this because you get all those picks. You get Shai Gilgeous-Alexander as well as like another pick. And by trading Paul George, I think now Sam Presti has carte blanche to maybe trade Russell Westbrook. So if they can completely remake their squad with that war chest of picks from the Clippers, like that's a great way for this franchise, which I think has a very, I don't know, there wasn't much they can do. They were stuck after this last postseason where they were terrible again, and they're paying the luxury tax for a team that can't really go anywhere. So if they can get off of Russell Westbrook as well, and there's rumors of him going to Miami, so then Miami becomes like this, you get your super duo of Jimmy Butler and Russell Westbrook. If I'm the Thunder, man, I would take anything they're giving me. If they're giving me Goran Dragic and Justice Winslow, absolutely, let's do it. Can I get Bam Adebayo and Tyler Herro too? That's awesome. So I feel like it would really behoove the Thunder to make a move with the Miami Heat. I honestly think the Thunder could trade Westbrook and Robertson and like Schroeder to the Wizards for John Wall, the terrible John Wall albatross contract, and Brad Beal. And maybe the Wizards would do that because if the Wizards are like, oh, we can get Russell Westbrook and get off of the John Wall contract, they might do it. And the Thunder could go into this season with like, hey, we could be pretty good. Maybe we can make the playoffs with a lineup of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Bradley Beal, Jeremy Grant, Gallinari, Steven Adams. And yes, we have this $40 million just being wasted on John Wall, but you can maybe keep all your picks in that situation. Maybe you have to send him one pick or something, but you can go forward into the future where you've swapped out the not great contract of Russell Westbrook and you've brought in the terrible contract of John Wall, but you also picked up Brad Beal, an elite young player who still has a very bright future ahead of him, and to pair up all of those future assets you could get with a backcourt, like you start off with a backcourt of Shai and Brad Beal. That seems awesome to me. And then, as you're still obviously still not optimal to use up like a third of your salary cap on a perhaps useless John Wall going forward, maybe you can flip him again after a year or two, or attach some of those picks to get off that contract. I don't think it would happen, but I think it's something that the Wizards would consider, and I think it's something that if I'm the Thunder, I might do. That's the kind of thing where I'm like, we could be good now, we can be good later, and we're paying extra to a dead John Wall contract, and just assume the young players we're drafting, it's like we can make up. We'll have maybe the cap room to do that, or if the cap goes up. So very exciting. I think another unspoken winner of this massive shift in the league's power is the Houston Rockets. If they can quit their infighting and quit bickering with each other and maybe stop cutting all their costs, the Houston Rockets are still very good. And I think it's a wide open race in the West. I guess it's you got the Clippers, you got the Lakers, you got the Nuggets and the Jazz and the Blazers and the Rockets. I mean, the losers are the Nuggets, who don't seem to be doing really anything. They maxed out Jamal Murray, which doesn't seem awesome. The Jazz made their moves thinking they were like going to be the best team in the West. They probably got a few writers or bloggers to say that over like a 3-day span, but that's probably over now. The Warriors the Warriors are going to be back in it. A lot of people are counting them out. Maybe I'm too optimistic about what Steph and Draymond can do on their own, but I think they're going to be in it. So I think all these teams, it's going to be a very balanced fight in the Western Conference. The East, I think the Bucks have to be your title favorite. We're talking with some people at breakfast this morning. Jacob Goldstein, who does all these win projections based on the rosters, he'd released those projections, and people were all mad about it because he had the Clippers projected for 49 wins, the Lakers at 47 or something. It was all very even, much lower win totals than you might imagine for these teams. But I think that might reflect, at least my guess is it's going to look somewhat similar to that. It is not going to be a huge dominant team. I think there's too many questions on all these squads to really say the Clippers are absolutely the overwhelming favorite. Looking to the Lakers, so the Lakers, kind of a tough night for them. I guess a very tough night for them. They lose out on Kawhi. Paul George finally returns to Los Angeles, but not to them in one fell swoop. And then the dominoes that fall after that is they wrap up Danny Green, like most people were guessing. And then they really did everything that I feel like everyone was joking and predicting, which I think is just terrible. They got Rondo. They got Kentavious Caldwell-Pope back at the cheap price of just $8 million a year this time. They went and got Boogie. They got JaVale McGee. So they brought in kind of everyone that they were thinking they were going to. They're still going to be very good, barring anything catastrophic happening to LeBron and Anthony Davis. It's going to be an interesting lineup. They got Quinn Cook. I don't think he's good at all, but maybe you want to play him over Rondo. Maybe they'll bring back still Alex Caruso. Their backcourt is a huge issue. I think it's a bad overpay. It's not a bad overpay. It's what they had to do for Danny Green, but it's going to be tough for Danny Green to live up to his contract. He's had some. I feel like his 2017 season was not very good, and 2018 before last year's season was pretty good. So if he's not that great, that doesn't bode well for the Lakers, I don't think. But I mean, with Kuzma, with Davis, with LeBron, Boogie Cousins, if he can round back into shape, they're going to be very interesting. But their lack of guard play is stark, and it's going to be, I think, difficult for them to overcome. But I mean, man, I'm fired up for the regular season. It's going to be really good. I'm fired up as a Grizzlies fan, where I don't have to win this season to let these other teams make short-term moves or win now moves and be like, all right, that's cool. You guys can have the next couple years. We will try to take over from that. All right, so I guess that's all the news, the breaking news that's gone on. I got to go over to the gym now on Saturday to catch, I got to say, a very underwhelming slate of games. Once again, with the league moratorium and then the trades can't be official until July 6th. So many of the top rookies are not playing because they got drafted by different teams that they're actually going to play for. And finally, the avalanche of moves has officially gone down. The Grizzlies tweeted in all caps, Mike Conley traded to Utah. Yeah, we knew that. Anyway, so the day of games at the gym is kind of dull, but hopefully we'll find some excitement there. Not as exciting as an earthquake. I don't want any more of those. But anyway, thanks for checking out the podcast. If you want to support us, you can do that at patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. I will be tweeting from Las Vegas all week at fastbreakbreak. Follow us on Instagram and on Facebook. All right, you guys are the best. Thanks for listening, and remember, breakfast is the most important thing.
Yeah, never apologize for being GNG. Fast break, man. You understand?